Look at your wrists right now. Still thin, still narrow, looking exactly the same as they did years ago. No matter how many workouts you've done, you've probably heard the same excuse over and over. It's just genetics. Your bone structure is small. You can't change your wrists. So, you stopped expecting them to grow. But here's the part nobody tells you. A secret lost to time that reveals why your wrists are not growing and what you can do to finally change them. Men thousands of years ago had wrists so thick they didn't even look like joints anymore. They looked like armor, solid, dense, almost unnatural. They didn't have gyms, no machines, no isolation exercises, and definitely no wrist curls. So, what did they know that you don't? Because if your wrists haven't changed, it's not because they can't. It's because you've been training them wrong the entire time. Here's the real reason. Your wrist size is not determined by bone. Bones barely change. What actually creates that thick, powerful look are the muscles and connective tissue that wrap into the wrist. And there are 3 key systems responsible for that: rotation, extension, and sustained tension. Now, think about your current training. Rows, pull-ups, deadlifts. All of it is the same motion over and over again. Flexion, closing your hand, pulling, gripping. You're hammering one side and completely ignoring the other 2. So, your wrist never fills out. It just stays flat. And here's the crazy part. Most people have never once trained wrist rotation under load, never trained extension properly, and never built real tendon density. This means even if you've been lifting for years, you're still missing the exact pieces that make wrists look thick. Once you fix that, everything changes. The first movement you're about to see is something almost nobody does anymore, even though it was once responsible for building some of the most brutally strong forearms in history. Imagine holding a weight, not in your palm, but at the end of a long lever. Now, imagine rotating it slowly, under control, again and again. That's exactly what ancient Persian warriors were doing over 2,500 years ago. Inside underground training chambers, they swung heavy wooden clubs in wide arcs for minutes at a time. Not fast, not sloppy, but with controlled rotation. And that single detail changes everything. Because the longer the lever, the harder your wrist has to fight to stabilize it. Every inch away from your hand multiplies the force. And what does that force target? The exact muscles that give your wrist that thick, rounded look from the side, the ones almost nobody trains. Here's the problem. Modern training removed rotation. Everything is linear now. Up, down, pull, push. But your forearm wasn't built just for that. It was built to rotate under load. When you ignore that function, you lose size exactly where it matters most. So, how do you bring it back? Simple. You don't need ancient weapons. You just need one dumbbell. Sit down, rest your forearm on your thigh or a bench. Hold the dumbbell vertically like a hammer. Now, slowly rotate your wrist downward until your palm faces the floor. Pause. Then rotate it back up past neutral until your palm faces the ceiling. That full rotation is 1 rep. If you're doing this right, you'll feel muscles activating that you've never felt before. Not a pump, something deeper, almost like your forearm is waking up. Go slow, with no momentum, because this isn't about moving weight. It's about forcing your wrist to control it. Do 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps in each direction. Here's where it gets interesting. After just a few sessions, you'll start noticing a subtle change. Not in size yet, but in how your wrist feels. More stable, more solid, like it's starting to thicken from the inside out. And that's just the first piece. Because the next mistake people make is even worse. and it's the reason your wrist still looks flat even from the angle everyone actually sees. Think about how people actually see your wrist, not from the side, but from the top. From that angle, most wrists look almost identical. Flat, narrow, no depth. Why? Because the entire top side of your forearm is underdeveloped, and almost nobody trains it. Ancient Indian wrestlers did. For thousands of years, they trained in mud pits, not with machines, but with resistance that fought them in every direction. One of their simplest methods was driving their hands into thick, heavy mud, fingers spread wide, then forcing them open and closed against resistance over and over again. Not gripping, but opening. And that changes everything. Because those muscles on the top of your forearm, the extensors, are what give your wrist that thick, full look when someone glances at you. Miss those, and your wrist will always look half-built, even if your grip strength is strong. Here's the crazy part. Most lifters have never directly trained this in their entire life, which means you're leaving visible size on the table without even knowing it. So how do you fix it? You recreate resistance in every direction. The easiest way. A bucket of rice. Sounds simple, but it's not. Fill a bucket with rice. Push both hands in. Now, start moving. Open your fingers as wide as possible. Close them into a fist. Twist your wrists. Spread. Crush. Rotate. Don't follow a pattern. Just fight the resistance for 2 to 3 minutes straight, with no breaks. Within 30 seconds, you'll feel something you've probably never felt before. A deep burn across the top of your forearms. Not your grip, not your palms, but the exact area that's been missing. Once that starts developing, your wrist doesn't just get stronger. It starts looking thicker from the angle that actually matters. Do 3 to 5 rounds, with short rests in between. Here's where most people quit, because it feels too simple to work. But the third movement is where everything comes together, and it's the difference between wrists that look good in the gym and wrists that look powerful all the time. Strength is obvious. You can see it when someone lifts something heavy, but density, that's different. That's what makes a wrist look thick even when it's relaxed, and almost nobody trains for it. Now, think about this. Viking rowers spent hours gripping thick wooden oars, day after day, fighting against water that never stops pushing back. No sets, no reps, no breaks, just constant tension. And that kind of strength does something your typical workout never will. It doesn't just build muscle, it thickens tendons, ligaments, fascia, the stuff that actually gives your wrist that solid, compact look, even at rest. Because here's the truth. A pumped forearm looks big for an hour. Dense tissue looks big all the time. So, how do you train that? You remove stability, and you extend time. Take a towel, throw it over a bar, grab both ends, and just hang. Sounds easy, but it's not. Because the towel forces your hands and wrists to constantly adjust. There's no fixed position, no comfortable grip. Your wrist is working the entire time without stopping, and that's exactly what creates density. If you can, do pull-ups using the towel. If not, just hang, or even do rows with a towel wrapped around something solid. The key is this: you stay under tension as long as possible. No rushing, no counting reps, just hold. Do 3 sets. Go until your grip starts to fail, then push a little longer. And here's what you'll notice first. Not size, but control. Your wrist stops feeling weak, stops feeling unstable. It starts feeling locked in. When all 3 of these pieces come together, rotation, extension, and sustained tension, you're finally training your wrists the way they were actually meant to be trained. That's why, after a few weeks, they don't just feel different. They start looking different in a way you can't quite explain, like something underneath the surface is changing. And that's usually the moment people realize they've been missing this the whole time.